that's a big mind shift, jumping into kind of civilian life and corporate world. Is no one's shooting at you. There's no roadside bomb waiting for you in the parking garage. Your employees are not, secret agents from some nefarious government. You've got to be able to take care of people and make sure that you can run the long race, not just what can I do this week.
Welcome to the Leader's Mindset, where we bring you conversations with leaders who are making an impact in business and our communities. Today, my guest is Austin Maness, U.S. Army veteran and co-founder of Harvest Returns. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Austin.
Hey, appreciate it, Jason.
Really glad to have you here. So tell us what Harvest Returns is and how did it come about?
Sure. Harvest Returns is an online platform using a crowdfunding model for Regulation D private equity raises. So we specifically do capital raises for farms, ranches, ag businesses, ag technology companies, and we try to enable investors, self-directed investors, the opportunity to invest in types of things that they wouldn't normally be able to invest in. And we use our model to lower investment minimums to allow more investors the opportunity to play in this space. And then we provide an avenue to capital that some of these farms, ranches, and other ag businesses would maybe not have the chance to attract in other spaces. And so we're bringing just two parties together that are obviously connected because we all have to eat and we all appreciate the products that ag businesses bring us. So that's kind of the overarching what Harvest Returns does. It came about because our CEO and my co-founder, Chris Raleigh, an avid investor, was looking for a way to get involved in this asset class and realize that, man, it's really hard to do so. You either have to come into a fund at a very large minimum, or you have to basically buy your own farm and maybe hire someone to do it. So he called me up with, we've known each other about 25 years. He's a Navy vet and we're both Texas A&M grads. And so he said, hey man, I'd like to start this company. Why don't you come help me do it? And of course, being a country boy and a veteran myself, I thought this is definitely something I want to be involved in. And so back in late 2016, we kicked it off and been raising capital since late 2017.
That's fantastic. So it really helps to remove those barriers to entry or barriers for small investors to invest in ag businesses and ag tech businesses that they may not have been able to invest in previously. How does this help the farmers? What do the farmers do with the kind of money that you invest in them?
Well, it's that great thing we always love to hear in the military. It depends. But some farmers, we've heard a lot of stories, especially from the small to medium family farms. You may have some aging parents that are looking to retire or have passed away, and their children are basically trying to decide what to do with that asset. Sometimes there's one of the children that are like, yes, I want to carry on the family legacy, but they need to buy out their siblings from their inheritance. And so that's kind of a basic version of it. So they'll take that capital, they'll buy out their siblings, maybe do some renovations and updates to the farm. And then now investors have a piece of that action and get to be a part of the family story. Other stories are, I have this great ag technology that I think is going to reduce carbon emissions or make milking a cow more efficient. And they need to get that to the market. They need to get their prototype built. They need to get it research and development complete. They need to get it to market. And so they'll use that capital just like a seed round or a pre-seed round to launch their company. So it's quite the gambit of reasons, but the gist of it is those businesses need capital like any startup to make themselves profitable and make their investors happy.
Yeah, I'm much more familiar with the tech and the product space, but it's really fascinating to me that what you're doing is enabling some of these small farm owners to keep those farms in the family, even if the whole family doesn't want to keep it. That's instead of having to sell out to a bigger company, or worst case, the farm goes inactive and then now they're just paying taxes on a property that they're not making any money off of. So that's a fascinating story. It's a really cool story that you're able to, you and the investors who work through your platform are able to keep some of those things in the family when they really want to stay in the family.
And investors really appreciate being part of something, not just, hey, they bought a stock, they bought a bond, they've invested somewhere else. To be involved in a family story that's a family business means something to investors, especially if it fits their investment philosophy. Like, I only want to invest in regenerative agricultural practices, or I only want to invest in sustainable businesses. Not only are they meeting those emotional things that they're meeting their emotional needs for that investment, but they're also getting connected to, hey, here is this family. They have kids. They have baseball practice in the afternoon. They have homework. They have family vacations. They have troubles. They have good times. And so for an investor to be a part of that story, and then to go back to their friends and their family and say, oh, yes, I'm an investor in this cattle ranch in eastern Montana, or I'm involved in this orchard in Western Oregon, and this is the story behind it. It gives them that sense of belonging and that connection to the food source that we've kind of separated ourselves from over the decades.
Yeah, we definitely see that in our ecosystem here is folks at the angel investing level, the pre-seed level, really want to get into it, not just to have an investment and have a return, but there's an additional piece of doing something that's important to them, something that has some meaning, and that's really cool. So what were you doing before you joined up with Harvest? Harvest Returns. I lost my notes for a second. What were you doing before you joined up with Harvest Returns, and what did you find appealing about it?
Well, ironically, I was just wrapping up graduate school. I had 10 years of active service in the Army, and just try to decide, okay, what do I want to do now? I did a little bit over a year in southern Turkey back when the Syrian Revolution was going on, and worked in some State Department contracts to help our friends over there in Syria as they were struggling for their own freedom. I did that for a while. Government contracting just didn't appeal to me as much. And the more I got involved with government, I thought I need to be less involved with government, and get back into a world where it's the market, and help investors, help a group of people find another group of people, and vice versa with the farmers. And so through grad school, and then I connected with Chris again, and he said, "Hey man, let's do this." And I thought, this is a great opportunity, especially at a time in my life, that, hey, this is the perfect time to be a startup, a founder, and take some risks and see where it goes.
When you were in the Army, did you ever think you'd be an entrepreneur or in the startup and tech world? Because when I was on active duty in the Air Force, until about my last year in the Air Force, if you had told me I was going to do that in my life, I would have said you're crazy.
I would say similarly, even up to the last year of active duty, I never thought this is where I would end up. I was the foolish, young, idealistic officer that thought, I'll just do this forever. My body will be able to do this forever, and the Army will need me forever. And as I got older and slightly wiser, I realized, like, hey, life happens, and you've got to roll with the punches, and you've got to adjust, and there are other things out there, that are opportunities that your talents can be used for. Even through the contracting job I did, and through grad school, entrepreneurship was not anywhere near towards the top of the list of things I thought I wanted to be when I grew up. But what I realized after getting into it, I had already been doing some of those things that an entrepreneur needs to be doing. I was already thinking in a way that an entrepreneur needs to be thinking. Especially in a startup business, just like warfare, you've got to be agile. You've got to not be too emotionally tied to a decision. You've got to roll with the punches and adjust and adjust and adjust, and find your good track to be on. So I realized that while it's not something I've envisioned, I was already doing those things, and I was already in that mindset. And so it came a little more naturally. And of course, there were the days you want to pull your hair out and flip some tables over. And there's some days you're high-fiving and cheersing at the bar. But all those combined, like, it just like, wait, this now makes sense. Like everything has prepared me for this.
That's awesome. I had very similar experiences. One of my assignments in the Air Force was working for a squadron where we did rapid capabilities development, and it was like being part of a small tech startup right in the middle of Air Force Space Command. And it was, I didn't realize at the time, but that was preparing me for what I do now. So what did you do in the Army, and how is startup life different from the military or government work you've done?
Sure. So I was an artillery officer for the better part of my time in service. So I did cannon artillery in Germany. I did rocket artillery in Korea, and then I transitioned into a role, FAO, Foreign Area Officer, where the Army would send these kind of individuals to different countries and help uh, defense attaches and help foreign military sales and help our relationship between U.S. Military and foreign militaries. So I'd started down that path with training, and my last deployment to Afghanistan, I was working at the NATO headquarters, working with just about every friendly nation that we have, and got quite the opportunity to test a little bit of language skills. The Army, in their wisdom, thought teaching me Turkish would be beneficial, which I never thought I would know or learn. But that was kind of the end of my time in the Army, and then which definitely helped me as I got that contract in Turkey. It definitely helped me order the right food and stay away from the wrong places. But the difference in what I was doing there, I would say the major difference, I think, is organizations like the U.S. military are, there's rooms full of manuals and there's rooms full of checklists, and no matter what you do, just to make sure to keep people safe and is to use proven methods to make sure that you're getting the job done. And so you just have to know those methods, and you just have to know those checklists, and you just have to practice the same steps over and over and over again. That is quite different in the startup world, where you are writing the manual, you are writing your own checklist, changing the checklist, getting to the next destination, figuring out, wait a minute, all those steps weren't the most efficient way. Let me figure out a new, better way to do it. So I would say that's the major difference is the methodology of things, using manuals and doctrine versus writing the manuals and the doctrine of your industry.
Well, and that works if you actually follow your manuals and doctrine. I remember having lots of discussions in my staff days at headquarters talking about, hey, I know you want to do this, but we're not really following our own doctrine. Maybe we should do that.
Yeah, I think it's a famous quote of some Russian general that said the problem with the Americans is they don't follow their own doctrine. How do you fight against that?
Yeah, problem, advantage, who's to say, right? You brought up the manuals, and I'm curious if you guys in your startup have reached the point where you talked about having to be flexible, adaptable, rewriting the procedures. But when you start hiring people, when you start bringing employees on, you have to get all that written down for them so that they're not making it up every day. Have you guys reached that point? How has that worked out for you?
Yeah, and I'm sure between Chris and I, his Navy time and my Army time, we always use that acronym everybody does, SOP, Standard Operating Procedures. And so trying to develop those for others to follow, that is a skill set you have to work on. It's a muscle that you have to work out and use again and again. You have to determine what you're doing, is it working, and you have to record what happened and how you did it. And so you have to have others be able to follow in your footsteps. And so once we started taking on employees, I think we got up to a team of 4 by 2018, and we had to catch them up to speed to where we were. And now we have 4 of us working on our own kind of SOPs in our own little pockets of the company. And so you develop the ability to write your own manuals, and then you have to develop people so that they can develop their own manuals and then help them review them, so that, all of our employees, we've always been the attitude of, we don't expect you to be here. This is not your, last job you're ever going to do, but we do want to make sure you leave here in a better way than when you got here. And we also want to make sure that whoever your replacement is can kind of pick up right where you left off. And so we've done that with employees over time. We've had some stay 2, 3, 4 years. Some are still with us 6, 7, 8 years later. But they have gotten into the habit of, I figured out something, I have now written it down, I've now reviewed it, and now I can reference it, or anybody can reference it when I'm on vacation or out of the office. And so that was a technique we had to develop, bringing employees in and helping them along that way.
Yeah, it's really fantastic when employees figure that one out, right? Is if I write it down and I show it to someone else and we kick it around a little bit, we can really make it solid. And then when I'm not here, someone else can just pick it up and go with it. It's really kind of fun to see employees pick up on that and start to apply that.
Absolutely.
So what else have you been able to tap into from your service experience all over the world to help with the challenges of running a startup?
Well, we talked about the agility piece of it. There's definitely days that you're going to get told no, especially when you're a company looking for investment, or you're trying to have a conversation with an investor that you think may be interested in one of the offerings that we have, and feeling that no, and you don't understand the why. And as you get older, and I guess in any part of life, you understand that people have a deeper story than what they're just telling you to your face. And so being able to understand how people are interacting with you, the whys of they do like things, the whys of why they don't like things. I definitely remember that working in Iraq and Afghanistan and talking with people from a culture I just completely didn't understand. I mean, I felt like I was in Conan the Barbarian. That's how old I am from watching those 80s movies. It was just such a different universe, but learning to understand that they don't think like I do and I don't think like they do. We have different priorities. We have different needs and wants. And so every customer is different. Every vendor is different. And having the ability to kind of take a step back, take a breath and go, okay, I need to come at this and try to remove all the biases I've had to be able to communicate effectively. And so the time and service of just being exposed to so many different places in the world, so many different people, really has helped us to just be a little more empathetic and a little more considerate in conversations of, hey, I get it. You want to invest $50,000. I need to understand what you're looking for. Or, hey, I get it. You need $180,000 for this farm. Help me understand what is the need here. Like, why do you need this piece of equipment? So these are the kind of things that helped us as we developed our customers.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, but it's always important to ask investors what kind of investor do you want to be, right? Are you
right?
Do you want to have input? Do you want to be mentoring, or do you want to kind of be hands off? And they're all different. Every investor is different. That's why it's so hard to raise money, right?
And the same is true on the portfolio company side. Some of those farms and ranches are like, hey, I'm not as savvy with accounting as other businesses. I could definitely use your help if you're an investor in our farm. Help me understand a few business things. There's some of the, especially on the business side and the technology side, they're good on the math. They don't need help with that, but they do appreciate strategic partnerships from their investor to say, hey, if I'm a cattle technology and you've invested in a bunch of cattle farms, maybe you can make some introductions for us. And that's, that can be applied along all parts of agriculture, between the technology side and the production side. And so we are very happy to be that conduit to say, hey, I've got a lot of orchards or I've got a lot of vineyards and I just raised money for this wine tech deal. I'm absolutely going to introduce these people to make sure everybody is benefiting from the relationship.
That's fantastic. So what was the biggest challenge you and the team faced getting Harvest Returns off the ground?
I think in the investor community, well, I guess the same is true in the farmer community too. You've got to have a level of like bona fides reputation. And when we first started, our mindset was that there's so much money out there. There's so many investors looking for places to put capital. They'll just come looking for us, and we won't have to spend a lot of time looking for them. We thought at the beginning that, man, farmers are from different parts. When we first started, we were doing just production ag. And we thought, man, it's really going to be hard to teach a farmer or rancher that's very used to an ag finance system that's 100, 200 years old. Hey, here is a different way of doing something. People that use a methodology and a know-how that they've been passed down generation to generation. And now you're trying to convince them like, hey, why don't you think about this new innovative way of doing something that your grandfather and his grandfather and his grandfather had already done. What we found out, though, was the opposite, that once the ag community started to realize, hey, there is another avenue to capital. There's an innovative way of doing this that is a bit more passive and won't be the bank breathing down your neck like their families have been used to. They actually came running very fast, and our deal flow exploded pretty early on. So that made us available more to go towards the investors and say, hey, look, we're putting these deals together. Now we've got to spend what we thought was going to be the time on the farmer side. We've got to spend it on the investor side, educating the investor a little bit more about their food system. And there were plenty of investors that were farmers themselves, so they understood the business and they saw the benefits of it. But we had conversations with wealthy, intelligent people and had to explain to them, this is where eggs come from, and this is where bacon comes from, and this is why this is a solid investment, because of people eat this stuff. And so there's a huge disconnect between our consumers and their food system. And so the investors were just trying to understand, why should I invest in this? Why is this important? And then educating them. That took us a lot of time and effort to get that investor base going. And we still do it today. And so I'd say the greatest challenge is just letting the customer know this is why this is important.
So you're back in Texas with this venture. We hear great things about the startup ecosystem down there, and here in Vegas, we hear great things about the startup ecosystem in Texas. What are some of the challenges in your ecosystem? And then what are some of the great things about it that we might be able to emulate here in Las Vegas or in other growing ecosystems?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We are experiencing, great benefit, especially in our space in like finance and technology here. Lots of companies have moved here from other parts of the United States just because Texas has such a pro-business, pro-small business atmosphere. The legislation is very pro-business here. Corporate taxes are low. There's no state income tax. So you can attract talent to this area, especially around Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, these kind of big hubs. There's plenty of industry. There's plenty of supportability, I guess you would say, infrastructure. You just have to be okay with triple digits and near 90% humidity for some parts of Texas. The further west you go, it gets a little drier, but it gets a lot hotter. And so the benefits of having just so many industries here, finance, tech, oil and gas, that attracts a lot of talent, which we can draw from. There's so many universities in so close a proximity that when you're a young company and you're looking for young talent that's moldable, we absolutely leveraged all of those universities that are, I think there's, large four-year universities. There's probably 20 in a 2-hour radius from us. And so there's systems that you can reach out into all those universities at the same time and go, I am looking for this talent. I need it by this time, and who's available. And the applicants just start coming. And then departments, excuse me. So when we're looking at these schools, we can reach out to departments and say, hey, finance department, ag department, marketing department, these are the talents we're looking for. Sometimes the professors themselves or the departments will reach out to us and go, hey, I've got this great young person that's looking for something, for an internship or for something more long-term. And then you can develop that relationship like while the young person is still being trained. So we've leveraged a lot of that during our early days, is just pulling talent, young, moldable, excited, not so risk averse talent. And as we grew, we were able to pull from go back to those master's programs. It's like, okay, let's start looking at kids with masters in accounting and masters MBAs. And so Texas just has a lot to offer businesses as far as supportability. The tax system and the legislation here is super pro business.
That's great. I think there's a lot of great lessons for us here. We're trying to build a lot of those things you guys have already down in your ecosystem. And it tells me we're on the right track, trying to build our relationships with universities, trying to build our other industries in Las Vegas so that we can attract the kind of talent that will then become our founders and CTOs of the future.
For sure.
So Harvest Returns has raised money in a bit different way than most other startups have. Tell us about your approach to raising funds for your company and how it worked out for you.
So we, every startup starts a few different ways. Our birth came from our CEO had made quite a bit of money in his investment life and had a little nest egg to say, hey, this is our seed money. We're going to basically, rent an office space and buy a tax ID number, And so that was the bare bones. And we knew that we had to get something up and running your minimum viable product. You got to get it out the door because you got to start generating revenue, because that little nest egg will only go so far. And so we were able to basically build our platform with a bunch of different partners and vendors, different technologies, get it up and running, and get those first few deals going with only using founders capital from the beginning. And we were a very small, light team. Chris and I started with an accounting intern, eventually hired a young accountant. And so we were very light and fast. And eventually we started to generate some revenue from these offerings. And we saw, okay, there's something here. We need to scale up. And so to do so, we're going to need an injection of capital. And so we were using a crowdfunding technology to raise money for other people. And then we sat down and said, all right, we've built an investor base and we've built a reputation. Maybe it's time to ask those investors if they want to be part of the head shed or the headquarters. And so we did an offering on our own platform, a Regulation D offering, private offering, and investors, basically our own customers, came to us and said, we like what you're doing and we want to be a part of it for longer. And we want the benefits of what you guys are experiencing from deal after deal after deal. And so we did a raise on our own platform, and it went very well. We raised near $2 million for our kind of seed round, and have been utilizing that ever since. And that was back in 2021. And so that was just a unique way of doing it. We're just raising from our own customers, which some business can do that, and highly recommend that to other small startups that are looking for a way to attract a lot of small checks that can make a big check.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you had the platform to do it. What I think is most interesting about that is that what really made that work was the relationships you had built along the way with the investors who invested in others through your platform. And that's something that gets kind of lost sometimes in the raising money discussion. Is it's kind of a dig your well before you're thirsty thing. You've got to start building those relationships early.
Yeah, the worst time to raise money is when you need it, because it's kind of obvious. And so you need to raise money when there's opportunity. And so we saw that our business was scalable. We had a track record to show we can raise money. We had a track record to show that, hey, farms and ranches and businesses are interested in this method. And so the investors saw that. They were enamored by this new way to get into the ag space. And they thought, man, we really want to ride along with these guys down the trail and see where it takes them. And you've got to have the emotional maturity to say, yeah, while I own the majority stake here, I'm okay to open it up a little bit and allow others to come in. And some of those investors that came into our round were strategic partners, people that we'd worked with and have absolutely paid off in as far as like introducing us to other investors or introducing us to other deals, and building many, many other relationships. And so you have to not only get the investor, but you need to pick the right investors. And that's kind of hard to wrap your mind around. You're like, I just need money when you're early on, but you really need to be selective. You definitely don't want an investor on your cap table that's just going to be a drain, that's going to call you every 5 minutes and want another financial report when you're just a baby company. What you want is a strategic investor that sees your opportunity and wants to grow and be along your journey and introduce you to people and bring you along to conferences and invite you to things. That's the kind of partners you want on your cap table.
I love it. That's fantastic advice. I'm going to share that clip with all of our founders here in our Las Vegas ecosystem. So let's take a little bit of a break from the serious questions. Let's play a game. Are you up for a game?
Absolutely.
All right. The name of this game is called Rapid Response. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I want you to respond with the first thing that comes to mind. Now, it doesn't need to be a one-word answer. Elaborate as much or as little as you'd like, but we want to get to know Austin a little bit and really just hear the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
All right, sounds good.
All right, let's begin. Austin Maness, rapid response round. Your time begins now. Podcast recommendation.
Oh my gosh. Well, Jason, I mean, I've got to throw yours in there, but that's
the only answer we don't allow on this podcast.
I gotten into a few of them back from my Army days. A young fellow that worked with us in Iraq, a guy by the name of Jocko, he's got a podcast, and he's kind of the muscle fitness guy, but a Navy SEAL we worked with, and so it's been entertaining to watch his.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jocko. I'm a big fan of when I first started creating my business, which was around leadership. He was a real inspiration and model for me on how to create a business, teaching what we learned in the military out to other people.
For sure.
What is a leadership practice you'd like to see more leaders embrace?
Oh gosh, communication is always the thing that people jump on. I would say leaders definitely need to understand, like, read the room, and God gave you one mouth and two ears, and sometimes you need to utilize both those ears and just kind of shut up and listen. And so I catch myself over speaking, over transmitting, and not receiving. So I wish anyone in the leadership world would be able to take that to heart and say, sometimes you just need to listen. Sometimes an answer is not required. Just the ears is all you need.
Great advice. That's what I catch myself having to remind myself to do all the time. Someone we should all be paying attention to.
Oh, someone. Okay. Say again?
Someone or something we should all be paying attention to.
Okay. Man, I think the hairs on my neck is the AI stuff and those that are involved with it. It has so much ability. It has so much. There's some scary things about it, and I saw kind of a clip of a podcast the other day that said, what's the new young kids term for, the people that use nothing but AI to get through the day, and they were a promptitude. Is the verbiage for the person that relies so heavily on AI for their daily stuff that they're kind of missing the point of life.
I love that. I haven't heard that yet. That's another great clip for us. What is either your get pumped up song or your walk on music?
Ooh, I got tainted back in the day when I saw my first artillery display at Fort Lewis, Washington. And they were playing AC/DC Thunderstruck, and they had calculated how to fire the cannons to the beat of the music, and the rounds exploding on the ground to the beat of the music. And that just, I get chills even thinking about it now. Like, if I hear that song, I just think of all that awesome power. And so I'm like, yeah, I could hear that just about every day if I had to.
That is a classic, and I'm really glad that the Army is able to be that precise with their firing and their impacts of their fires.
Absolutely.
The biggest influence in your life?
I'm a big spiritual guy. I was raised in the church, and so when I get into making decisions, whether it's for my family or for work, I've trained myself to be like, that's the first go-to mindset is what do I need to look like, and what do I need to sound like to be a good representation of that lifestyle? And so I try to do that. I fail all the time, obviously, at doing it, but that is my mental state every time when I try to think of what I need to be doing, or catch myself like, do I need to be doing this, or do I need to be saying this? Is to reflect back on those lessons from Sunday school all the way up to going to church every Sunday. That's my faith has been the thing that keeps me a little calm in situations where other people's hairs are on fire.
That's great. It's a great skill for startup life, right? Because you're going to fail a lot in startup life. You're going to catch yourself doing a lot of things maybe you shouldn't be doing, and it's how you move on from that, not what you did, right?
Absolutely, and you've got to apply that grace to others as you're asking for it when you make a lot of mistakes, and like you were asking the leader question earlier, having that grace with your employees or your vendors or your customers to say, hey, look, man, I know you didn't mean to, or I know you're having a rough day. Here's some empathy. Here's some grace. Let's move forward. And that buys you social capital that you can't get anywhere else.
Great advice for startup life, because we don't hear that advice in startup life. A lot of it's push, right? Push yourself, push others, get there, get it done. But yeah, not just great advice for startup life, great advice in general.
For sure.
A book everyone should read.
Oh man. The one I've probably read other than the good book, more than anything was it was something I got introduced to as a young kid, and I swore I was going to grow up and be a cowboy or a lawman. Was Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove, and it was something that got passed around our family. Like my uncle had it, then my cousin had it, then my dad, and we must have read that book I don't know how many times, and we thought we were going to grow up and be Texas cowboys and lawmen or whatever. But it is a lot of lessons in there, a lot of attitudes that you can pull from the characters. And so I just really enjoyed it. It's obviously fiction that uses some historical stuff in there, but that is one I've just really enjoyed. And then there's plenty more. Startup wise, we start off. It's called the Lean Startup. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but that one we blazed through pretty early, and it had those principles that everybody thinks they know. Like, hey, you got to get that minimum viable product put out. You've got to adjust. And just some good lessons in there or some good tips in there, so you don't learn the hard lessons. You learn the smart lessons.
Yep, there's a reason there's so many books with all those lessons in them. And you know what? We all read them, and we all think we're going to find our own way, and then we all come around, right?
That's for sure.
You know what? I love the Lonesome Dove stuff. I haven't read those, but I'm going to have to put those on my list now. That's why I asked this question, is to add books to my reading list. So I hope.
There you go, yeah.
I'm always hoping to hear about ones I haven't heard about. And it reminds me, because we've both been deployed, and we were both deployed back in the days before streaming and social media and all that kind of stuff. And it just reminds me of like how people would just pass books around. Like when you finish with a book, you would just leave it laying in the break room or the common room or the rec tent or whatever it was, because you read it, you didn't need any more, and someone else was going to be looking for something to read. Yeah,
I remember being stuck somewhere, because it's always like wait here 90% of your time, and then 10% of your time it's like fury. But I remember going through a few of the Tom Clancy's and the Clive Cusslers, just because it was kind of the world I was in, and thought, oh, these are some interesting topics. I mean, I even picked up it was like the Halo video game. It was an actual novel, and I was like, man, this is really, whoever wrote this is knows what they're talking about as far as military leadership and practices, and it was like a more sci-fi style thing. But yeah, you're exactly right. You've got to fill your time, and we definitely didn't have the devices back then that we do now. Yeah,
for the folks who are going through it now, you have no idea. When you were stuck in Kuwait or Al Udeid or Manas or somewhere for maybe 4 days, maybe longer, you don't know when, you will pick up anything that's sitting on a table and read it just to fill some time.
I would throw in, it just came to me, or we were talking about the deployment one I read in grad school that I absolutely wished I had read prior to going to Afghanistan, was called The Great Game. Of course, I can't remember the author right now, but it was basically the story of that part of the world back when it was like British captains in the 1800s, and they were going out there alone and unafraid, unsanctioned, and just trying to find pathways to India, and just the stories of these guys, like a British captain by the name of Abbott that they've named Abbottabad, Pakistan, after. Just those kind of stories. I totally wish I had gone through that book, and it's a thick book. Totally wish I had read that just to get a little bit of glimpse of what that country was like, and hasn't changed that much in the last 300 years. And so I would highly recommend that one, The Great Game. It was a wonderful read.
Yeah, I will definitely check that out, because that's a period of history I don't know much about, and I've always been a little bit curious about, to learn more about that. What the British were doing with the Great Game, and a lot of the stuff they were kind of playing that chess match against the Russians in the 19th century as well. So,
for sure.
All right, the best summertime activity in Texas.
Oh, if you're summertime in Texas, you got to get in the water. And unfortunately, we just had kind of a rough go of it here back in July 4th weekend. But the typical, whether you're with your buds or you're with your family, we used to do it when I was a young student at A&M, is you got to find one of those rivers, and they'll rent you 2 inner tubes, one for your butt and one for your cooler. And they give you a little onion sack to throw your empty beer cans in. And so you float down that river and try to stay cool, and you keep throwing your trash in your onion sack so you don't litter. And then by the time you get down to the end of the river and they pick you up, it's time to go to probably a live music there at Green Hall or something like that. So the Texas Hill Country right now is doing a lot of cleanup, but that's an area that we all love to go down to. And just relax and enjoy nature.
Well, we're wishing everyone down that way our best here. We're all sending help and sending thoughts and prayers and all that kind of stuff. And I hope you guys get that cleaned up and get back to regular lives and doing the fun stuff soon.
Absolutely.
Your dream vacation spot?
Ooh, my wife and I argue about this all the time. She's definitely like the beach kind of gal. She grew up in Florida. I like the cool air, and so I've been trying to convince her, like, we definitely need to go. I want to see those northern lights. I want to go to kind of like whether it's Iceland or northern Norway, something like that. I'd like to spend some time, up in that part of the world, just completely unplugged, looking at the sky. I mean, one of the most beautiful skies I've ever seen was a trip I took to Mongolia in the summertime, and there's so little light pollution that you actually see what the rest of the sky's supposed to look like. And just to be in awe of that and to stand underneath it, that's, I've seen pictures of the northern lights and all that kind of stuff, but I want to stand there and I want to feel it and I want to see it. So to me, that's it. Just a little yurt and maybe some hot chili and be able to look up at the sky.
I'm going to be honest. That sounds like the perfect thing to do right now in the middle of summer in the Southwest.
Absolutely.
Besides AI, a tech trend you're excited about?
A tech trend. Gosh. Now my mind just went blank. I would say I'm interested. I'm a car guy. I've always enjoyed the combustible engine. I have just kind of been following to see, like, people that enjoy the all electric vehicles or the hybrids. There's so many more opportunities out there for power sources, whether that's a hydrogen fuel cell, things like that. So I kind of keep a finger on that pulse. I want to see where it goes. I enjoy the high horsepower that my gasoline motor provides me, but I'm interested to see where it goes in that. Like, can I get that same performance and have the infrastructure, supportable infrastructure for it, whether it's a hydrogen fuel cell or full electric. I'm interested to see where it goes. So I'm not throwing my hat on any one horse, so to speak, but I really want to see what the next phase of that is.
Yeah, we've got a friend. We got introduced through our friend Jason Schwab, goes by Sherlock. But we have another friend here in Vegas who goes by Mental, and he's into amateur racing. And there's some really cool things going on with the technology, the drive and propulsion technology in amateur racing. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on that to see what tech trends are coming out of that. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and you asked about here in Dallas. There's 4 racetracks within an hour's drive from my office that anyone can, with a decent automobile, and I say decent like it's just got to hold together, can go out and enjoy those. And that's just something I've dabbled in, just in a completely hobby way, not in any kind of competitive way. But you definitely start to learn, as pilots know, probably more so than most of us, like what the air can do for you and what the ground will do for you and what inertia will do for you. And just learning all those things has been quite exciting. But like I said, there's people been innovating that industry for over 100 years, and I'm very curious to see where it goes.
As long as there's been an internal combustion engine, guys have been racing them, and girls now. And as long as guys and girls have been racing cars, they've been trying to get a tech edge on stuff. So I think it's great. I think it's going to drive us in a great direction. All right, last one. Favorite sports team or player?
I'd say, I got to go with my Aggies because that's kind of what I was indoctrinated into. Good or bad, got to watch them on TV, whether that's baseball, basketball, football. Obviously here in Texas, football is king. So I kind of lean that way. Love watching the college football, even when I'm ready to throw something at any television in the house or at the radio if I'm listening to it. I'm going to watch them. Everyone always asks me, like, are you a Cowboys fan? Or I was like, well, they got plenty of fans. They don't need one more. But for the Aggies, I'm always gonna stick around with.
Yeah, I'm a Red Sox fan, so I know what those highs and lows are like with a favorite team.
For sure.
All right. Well, thanks for playing our game. It's been nice to get to know you a little more about you than some of the business questions might lead us to understand. So getting back to it, in the military, we learn a lot of amazing lessons about teamwork and leadership that serve us well in business. But are there any lessons from the military you found you had to leave behind when you jumped into startup life?
Well, I would say, the military breeds a bit of idea in your head, like, hey, you've got to you've got to have the ability to pass on anything immediately, as in, and I'll try to phrase that better. When you're a leader in the military, you have got to be able to take a hit, be knocked out of the fight, and your next subordinate down be able to pick up that and complete the mission. And so in the Army, we always had a saying like mission first, people always, meaning that you have got to accomplish the mission because there's something bigger at stake. But you always got to take care of your people. But the mission comes first. But you always got to take care of your people. And so in the startup life, there's a bit more flexibility on you've got to meet certain objectives, but you don't want to sacrifice something too great to meet that objective when you can just take a step back, figure it out, and move forward. In combat in the military, there's no like taking a break. You can't go up to the enemy and go like, hey, time out, I need to figure something out. You have to move the mission forward. In startup life, you have to take care of your people or they will not take care of you. And so I lean more on the startup, like I needed to be less emotionally focused on an outcome and more focused on, I need this guy or gal to work here tomorrow and the next day because they're good talent and they're good people. So I may need to sacrifice a little bit of the mission because I have that flexibility to go, hey, how do we do this, but take care of our folks at the same time? So I guess dialing down the intensity of the mission and putting more focus on the people that work here or your customers, you've got to be able to do that because the Army will continue to be the Army no matter how many people we lose in world conflicts. These companies will not survive if they don't have customers or people. And so you've got to be cognizant of that. I think that's a big mind shift jumping into kind of civilian life in corporate world is no one's shooting at you. There's no roadside bomb waiting for you in the parking garage. Your employees are not, secret agents from some nefarious government. You've got to be able to take care of people and make sure that you can run the long race, not just what can I do this week.
Yeah, that's so funny. I remember the first couple of years I got out of the military, whether it was startup stuff or other business stuff. I remember using the phrase, listen, it's okay. No one's shooting at us a lot.
Absolutely.
We're going to be fine. So Harvest Returns is a little unique for a startup. You guys don't have a CTO or a big internal tech team. What's your approach to your tech stack? And what are some of the challenges that come along with that?
No, great question. One of our lessons that we were reading about early on, and we kind of understood, because again, the military, I'm not writing those paychecks to those soldiers, somebody else is. I understand the budget for my unit, but when you become a startup, when you're a founder of a startup, like you are everything. You are HR, you are payroll, you are accounting. And so you see that stuff like very firsthand. And so it will become overwhelmingly obvious to any new founder, people are your most expensive thing, absolutely on your balance sheet. Your cash flow will always there will just be this massive gravity towards people. And so we understood that. And so, okay, not that I don't want to have another team member. It's just that I understand the cost of someone with a skill set that I would need in the tech space to build a platform that can do subscription documents, can do payments, can do distributions, can share sensitive tax documents securely. Either someone's going to have to build that or I'm going to have to find that service elsewhere. And so that's the kind of route that we chose. And we had talked with a few other crowdfunding companies that were in like real estate and clean energy and said, hey, how did you approach this? and most of them said the same thing. Like, you go to the vendors that can help you put together the black box, and then eventually, you may find that you need that in-house talent and that expertise that you would hire like a CTO to kind of oversee all that. We've benefited from some great partners for our black box, so to speak. Our front end of our website, the investor processing part of our platform, the escrow portion, the distribution portion, all of those components we've shopped for a long time and had a lot of long conversations with these vendors to make sure that their services fit our needs. And then we put that box together. We put all those components together, and at a cost of what, the complete cost of our platform is much more workable than, say, a CTO with salary expectations and benefits and things like that. That is the route that we went. And so we've had just great partners that's helped us to keep that model.
That's great. It's nice to see you've got it all connected up and working together, and can save bringing the big team on for a day when you really have to do that.
Absolutely.
So, as if you didn't have enough going on, you also give back to the community by mentoring veteran entrepreneurs through a university program. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so of course Chris and I are both still very connected with Texas A&M. They have a program called EBV, and there's other universities that are involved in the same program, but it's funded by donors. So basically, the university puts out a call to veteran entrepreneurs, meaning like as long as you're a veteran and you're trying to get started in a company, you don't have to be like an A&M grad or alumni or anything. But the veterans apply for the program. If they get accepted, it's about a month of classwork at home and then a week on site to do kind of hardcore incubator style training. That program invites other entrepreneurs, not just veterans, but they obviously love veteran entrepreneurs as well, to come and be kind of volunteer mentors during that week, to sit down with these folks that maybe you're in the same industry or you just experienced something very similar, or maybe you have an expertise that they're looking for, whether it's marketing, accounting, or any other kind of normal business industry. And so we go down there and hang out for a few hours a night, and basically just sit down with some veterans of all ages and all backgrounds and say, okay, what are you trying to do? And of course, our business is focused in finance and ag, but every startup has the same startup issues. And so even if we're talking to someone that's like, I want to start a garage that fixes cars, or I want to start a shop that sells soap, they still have the same startup issues, and they just try and understand, hey, I don't know what I don't know. You guys have done this. What did you learn? And so that's, Chris and I would go down there and share those experiences with them and say, hey, don't worry about this, but you do need to worry about this. Like, don't hurt yourself over here, but don't sweat too much about this. And I know a guy, which is always, one of the best things. Like, hey, here's a business card for a guy. You need to talk to him, or this lady, she will square you away on this service. So networking style. So we really enjoy doing that. It's obviously emotionally beneficial to us to kind of give back. And we've both had children that were attending A&M, so it's obviously a benefit to sneak down there and maybe hang out with them. So we just love going back to that area, and of course, just to help other veteran entrepreneurs is pretty rewarding.
That's really cool. That's a really great way to give back some of the success you've had. So what are some of the big problems in agriculture right now that could use a tech solution that maybe an aspiring startup founder might spark some innovation on?
I would say what we've learned from the production side, dealing with a lot of these, small to medium family farms, is it's the business side of the business. Like, they know how a cow works. They know how to grow corn. They know how to do that part of the business. But typically, kind of in a traditional sense, out in rural America, it was kind of the spouse's job to, hey, go take care of the receipts and the books. And you cannot, in a real business world, you cannot just kind of half-baked do that. You need expertise in accounting and sales and marketing and to keep yourself out of trouble. But to keep the book straight. I mean, if you're bleeding cash and you don't know it, you're going to run your business into the ground. So on the production side, we've just seen a real need for technologies that assist in that area. We actually invested in a company out of Atlanta that they are developing AI tools to do those specific tasks. Like, hey, go handle the horses, go handle the cows, go handle the chickens. Let this system, you just feed it the receipts and it will start to tell you, hey, here's some things you need to keep an eye on, or hey, you're doing really well here, you can take some risks here. And so they're starting, basic functions like accounting, and they're helping businesses kind of get their books straight. So we're pretty excited to see where they go with that technology to just help those folks that know how to grow our food, but just maybe have some challenges with the business side of it, to get more efficient in that way. On the production side, or kind of what we say like distribution production in the food system, there's so many nodes along the food supply chain. The farmer's kind of the low end, even though they're kind of the most important part of it, they're kind of at the least rewarded part of it. And so when you think of like, I'm going to go to my grocery store and get a slab of bacon off the shelf, that has touched so many different nodes in the supply chain that by the time you get down to the hog farmer, they're making kind of pennies compared to what all those other nodes did. And so there's not really a control of destiny from the production side going towards the shelf side. A lot of ag production companies, businesses, farms are trying their hand at the direct to customer sales. And some customers appreciate that. Like, I like to get my steak from my guy or my ranch out in the middle of nowhere, and they just ship it to me. And that has its pros and cons. But the distribution system definitely needs some work as far as sharing some of the risk and reward back towards the farmer. So there are technologies out there that are trying to connect customers around some of the giant distribution. When you have these centralized distribution centers, those can be affected by things like pandemics and disruptions and other things in the supply chain. So we've got to figure out a way to connect people to the food a lot quicker.
Sounds like some great challenges for some aspiring entrepreneurs to take up and provide some innovation. So what's coming
Absolutely.
up with you and Harvest Returns in 2025?
Well, we've got, we continue to raise capital for different ag businesses. We just did a big upgrade to our platform. And so our investors have fed us some positive feedback that they're enjoying the new system. And so we've rolled that out here about mid-year and now just getting that thing running like a steam locomotive. We continue to reach out to businesses across the globe for potential capital raises. We've got some fund structures coming up, so we're excited to kind of continue the model that's worked for us, and then innovate into bigger models, bigger investors, but also maintain our relationships with the small to medium farms and our small or medium investors.
Sounds great. Perfect place to leave it. For everyone watching or listening right now, what's something they can do if they're trying to get a new venture off the ground? What's your best advice for someone trying to get a startup going right now?
Especially in the tech space, because I know you talked to a lot of folks there. Where we see the best advice at the beginning is, do not come up with a solution that there is no problem for. And what I mean by that is there's so many smart young people out there, young and old, that are coming up with these great ideas, these great technologies, and they have not fully vetted, do I need that? And so I always say, when I'm talking to a tech company, it's like, hey, this is my thing, and I'm going to save the planet, and that's great. But if you can't get a farmer to buy it, it's not going to go anywhere. And so you've got to show, here's my technology. You don't need to fully understand how it works, but you need to understand this is how it's going to save you money, farmer, or this is how it's going to increase your revenues, cattle rancher. If you implement my technology, here's the cost, here's the benefit over this amount of time. Here it is. Here's the risk associated with it. Here's how we're mitigating that. And the farmer will say, hey, I like what you got. You're showing me that it's going to work. Now I'll buy it. Now your technology is viable. Now you can go and say, hey, everybody, we've done the test. We've got some sales traction. This is a problem and we are the solution. And if you can show that, that is the best path forward. But please don't solve a problem that doesn't exist, because you're you're wasting beautiful talent and creativity on something. Find the thing that actually needs to be solved.
That's great advice, and I don't think it can ever be said too many times to startup founders. So where can everyone find you so they can thank you for joining us today?
So we're at harvestreturns.com, and just reach out to us at any point, and we'd love to have a conversation with you.
Fantastic. Austin, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank all of you for watching and listening. If you found this conversation valuable, go ahead and share it with someone who can use it. Leave us a comment. Don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with all the great interviews we're going to be doing. If you're on a podcast platform where you can leave a review, we'd love it if you'd leave us a 5-star review. It helps us build the audience and get these interviews out there to more people so they can hear the great insights people like Austin have to share with us. So lots more amazing leaders coming your way. Go out there, do great things today. Onward and upward.